20 of the fantasy baseball season. I mean, there's a few hitters falling down the rankings this week. The first guy's Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox. So just like the Red Sox here, Devers, he's definitely been struggling over the last couple weeks here for this Red Sox team. On the season overall, though, it's been a good year for him, no doubt about it. 30 home runs, 94 RBIs, 80 runs scored, a 276 average, 4 stolen bases, and a 352 on base. In the last couple weeks here for Devers, though, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, 6 runs scored, an awful 196 average, and a 275 on base. So right now, it's been the worst time in the last few weeks here for Devers of his career here. Not hitting the baseball well, not getting on base, and hitting for a low average. But the only thing he's really shown in the last few weeks is still the power is there. August 18th at the Yankees, 0 for 4. August 20th versus Texas, 0 for 4. August 21st versus Texas, 0 for 4. August 23rd versus Texas, 2 for 5, a run and an RBI. August 24th versus Minnesota, 1 for 4, 2 runs and an RBI. August 25th versus Minnesota, 0 for 3. And August 26th versus Minnesota, 2 for 5 with a homer, 3 RBIs and a stolen base. So it was good to see Devers hit a home run in yesterday's ball game. But right now, he's struggling mightily. He's definitely a player that I think will bounce back. But right now, over the last few weeks here, and in week 20, he's definitely a hitter, falling down the rankings this week. The next hit is Gene Segura of the Philadelphia Phillies. So the Phillies here, they've been in a total tailspin pretty much over the last few weeks. And their table setter and one of their better hitters in their lineup, Gene Segura, has been struggling the last couple weeks here. On the season, still 9 home runs, 43 RBIs, 55 runs scored, 9 stolen bases, 290 batting average, and a 352 on base. So those are pretty good numbers for Segura on the season, especially like I mentioned, as a table setter for Philly. But the last couple weeks here, it's been a total mess. 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 7 runs scored, a 128 average, and a 226 on base. So right there, those numbers aren't going to cut it. And especially for a guy who's supposed to be a catalyst for his team's lineup, he's just not getting the job done. And right now, I know he qualifies second, third, and short in fantasy, but it's tough to have him in your lineup, and it's even tough in shallower leagues to own him on your roster right now while he's struggling. The last few games, August 19th at Arizona, 1 for 5 with a run. August 20th at San Diego, 0 for 1 with 2 runs and 2 bases. August 21st at San Diego, 0 for 3 with a run. August 22nd at San Diego, 1 for 5. August 24th versus Tampa, 0 for 4. August 25th versus Tampa, 0 for 4 with a run. And August 26th, 2 for 5 versus Arizona, a homer and 2 RBI. So that's the only bright spot there versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, that he hit a home run. He had 2 hits in the game. Or maybe Segura's going to turn things around, but right now, he's definitely falling down the rankings this week. The next hit is falling down the rankings here, Mark Hannahan of the Oakland Athletics. So in general, I don't even think Hannahan's had a great year. In the last couple weeks, he's hit way below his average. But on the season, 12 home runs, 43 RBIs. The 73 runs scored is definitely a good number, though. But 12 stolen bases, a 233 average, and a 362 on base. But somehow, in my opinion, I don't know how he's still owned in 70% of fantasy leagues. But owners right now, they've looked at his numbers over the last few weeks, and the lack of production have dropped him in 5% of fantasy leagues. In the last couple weeks here, it's been a total nightmare for Hannahan. 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 125 average, and a 236 on base. So right there, those numbers aren't going to cut it. And like I mentioned, his numbers as a whole aren't good this season. And the last couple weeks, they're way below the Mendoza line. August 19th at the White Sox, 0 for 4. August 20th versus the Giants, 0 for 4 with a run. August 21st versus the Giants, 0 for 4 with a run. August 22nd versus San Francisco, 1 for 4 with an RBI. August 23rd versus Seattle, 1 for 4 with a run and a stolen base. August 24th versus Seattle, 0 for 3. And August 26th versus the Yankees, 0 for 4. So right now, he's not hitting the baseball well. His strikeout rate is way out of control as well here for Hannahan. In his last 4 games, he struck out 6 times. So he's not putting the bat on ball. He's not producing. And he's definitely a player falling and a player I would drop this week in fantasy baseball. The next hit is Trevor Story of the Colorado Rockies. So it's been a tale of 2 tapes this season for Story. A guy obviously who went at the late end, early second round of your fantasy drafts coming into the year. and he just hasn't really been productive, in my opinion, especially for a guy who was a first-round pick, 16 homers, 58 RBIs, 17 stolen bases, 65 runs scored, a 246 average, and a 323 on base. So right there, those numbers aren't going to cut it, in my opinion, for Trevor Story and fantasy owners. And the last couple weeks here, 1 homer, 4 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 150 average, and a 227 on base. So right here, he's hitting poorly, and he's a player that just can't get out of his own way right now, is Story. And he's a little banged up as well with a leg injury, but he should be fine. The reports have come out after that ball game. So the last few games here for Story: August 17th versus the Padres, 0 for 3 with a run. August 18th versus the Padres, 1 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. August 20th versus Arizona, 1 for 4 with 2 runs. August 21st versus Arizona, 0 for 4. August 22nd versus Arizona, 0 for 4. August 23rd versus the Cubs, 0 for 1. And then a doubleheader a couple nights ago, August 25th at the Cubs, he went 0 for 8 in that ball game. So right here, he's definitely struggling. He's not producing. And he's a guy in a contract season as well, but I don't see him getting that huge contract after a poor season, in my opinion, according to Story standards. And he's definitely fallen this week, and the fifth and final hitter fallen this week, Mitch Haniger of the Seattle Mariners. So Mitch Haniger, it's been an up and down season for him, but the legit thing about him is definitely his power. 29 homers, 73 RBIs, 86 runs scored, a stolen base, but a 250 average and a 311 on base. So obviously he's not a high batting average guy, but Haniger definitely showing the power this season. But the last couple weeks here for Haniger, another hitter hitting way below the Mendoza line. And a lot of these guys have really struggled the last few weeks. 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 10 runs scored, but a 159 average and a 283 on base. So right here, this Mariner team, they've been playing great baseball for most of the season here. But maybe Mitch Haniger's hitting the wall as well, where last season he didn't play as well, and he opted out during the pandemic. So the last few games for Haniger: August 19th at Texas, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored. August 20th at Houston, 0 for 3. August 21st at Houston, 1 for 4, a homer, an RBI, and a run. August 22nd at Houston, 0 for 4 with a run. August 23rd at Oakland, 1 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, and a run. August 24th at Oakland, 0 for 3. And August 26th versus Kansas City, 0 for 5. So right here, he's not getting anything going, is Haniger. He's not even really showing the power as well over the last few weeks, especially this week, where he's only got 2 home runs in the time. So right now, like I mentioned, he's probably fatigued. He might be slumping, obviously, and hitting the wall. And he's definitely a hitter falling down the rankings this week. So those are a few hitters falling here in week 20 of the fantasy baseball season.